I never thought a simple bracelet could shatter my world. It wasn't even particularly beautiful, just a delicate silver chain with a small heart charm that I found wedged between the passenger seat and center console of my husband's car. But it wasn't mine, and I knew with absolute certainty that Caleb hadn't bought it for me. My name is Ellie, and until that moment, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. Not perfect, but good enough. The kind of life where you go through the motions, making school lunches, attending parent-teacher conferences, and pretending not to notice when your husband comes home later and later from work. "Mommy, can we have pancakes?" Jasper's voice pulled me from my thoughts. He stood in the doorway of the garage, still in his dinosaur pajamas, completely unaware that his mother was having an existential crisis while cleaning out the family car. "Sure, baby." I quickly pocketed the bracelet, my hands trembling slightly. "Go wash up and I'll start breakfast." As I mixed the batter, my mind raced through possibilities. Maybe it belonged to a coworker who needed a ride. Maybe it was a gift for me that he forgot about. Maybe I was being paranoid. But deep down, I knew better. The same way I knew better when I smelled unfamiliar perfume on his shirts, or when he started taking calls in another room. "These are the best pancakes ever," Jasper declared, maple syrup dripping down his chin. I forced a smile, watching him devour his breakfast. "Don't forget you have soccer practice after school today. Is Dad coming?" He said he'll try, sweetie." Another lie to add to the growing pile. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. After dropping Jasper at school, I sat in the parking lot, staring at the bracelet in my palm. The price tag was still attached, tucked discreetly inside the clasp, $450. That's what my marriage was worth, apparently. A mid-range piece of jewelry that wasn't even my style. My phone buzzed. A text from Caleb, working late again. "Don't wait up." Of course he was. I typed and deleted several responses before settling on a simple, "Okay?" What I wanted to say was, "I found her bracelet." I know, but I didn't. Not yet. Because once those words were out there, everything would change. And I wasn't quite ready for that. Not until I figured out exactly how I was going to make him regret every single lie he'd told me. I started the car, the bracelet heavy in my pocket. For the first time in years, I felt something other than resignation. I felt angry. And anger, I was beginning to realize, might be exactly what I needed to finally stand up for myself. I waited until Jasper was asleep before confronting Caleb. He sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through his phone with that familiar distant look in his eyes. The bracelet felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. "I found something interesting in your car today," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He barely glanced up. "Oh." I placed the bracelet on the counter between us. The silver chain caught the light, throwing tiny reflections across his face. For a split second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, panic, maybe guilt, before his expression smoothed over. "That's Sarah from accountings," he said, his tone casual. "She left it in my car when I gave her a ride to a client meeting last week." I meant to return it. The lie slid off his tongue so easily that I almost believed him. Almost. "A $450 bracelet?" I picked it up, letting it dangle from my fingers. "That's quite expensive for someone in accounting." "What are you implying, Ellie?" His voice took on that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. "You're being paranoid again." Again. I felt my cheeks flush. When was I paranoid before? When you started working late every Tuesday and Thursday. When you changed your phone password. When you... Stop. He stood up, towering over me. "I'm not doing this with you. I work hard to provide for this family, and I don't deserve to be interrogated like a criminal." "Provide." I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. "When was the last time you came to one of Jasper's soccer games? Or helped him with homework? Or had dinner with us before 9 p.m.? Mommy." We both turned to see Jasper standing in the doorway, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. The sight of his worried face made my heart crack. "Everything's okay, sweetie," I said, forcing a smile. "Did we wake you? Are you fighting because of me?" "No, baby." I moved to hug him, but Caleb got there first. "Your mom and I are just having a grown-up discussion," he said, scooping Jasper up. "Let's get you back to bed." I watched them disappear upstairs, the bracelet still dangling from my fingers. My phone buzzed, a text from Maggie. "Coffee tomorrow? You've been quiet lately." I typed back quickly, please. I need to talk. When Caleb came back downstairs, he acted like nothing had happened. He grabbed his keys and jacket, muttering something about forgotten paperwork at the office. I didn't stop him. Instead, I went to our bedroom and opened his side of the closet. If he could lie so easily about a bracelet, what else was he hiding? It was time to find out exactly who my husband had become. He's sleeping with someone named Lila. Maggie's coffee went cold as I showed her the messages I'd found on Caleb's tablet. He'd forgotten to log out of his email account, probably too distracted by his late-night work emergency. That son of a... Maggie caught herself glancing around the quiet cafe. How long have you known? I found the messages this morning. My hands shook as I scrolled through the exchanges. She works at his firm. 29, apparently. There are pictures. Oh, honey. Maggie reached across the table, squeezing my hand. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Ruth's name flashed on the screen. My mother-in-law had always been more of a mother to me than my own, and the thought of disappointing her made my stomach turn. Eleanor, dear, her warm voice filled my ear. We haven't seen you and Jasper in ages. Why don't you both come for dinner tonight? Walter's grilling steaks. I don't know if. Caleb's already confirmed he'll be there. Said he'd leave work early for once. I caught Maggie's eye and something clicked. Actually, Ruth, that sounds perfect. We'll be there. After hanging up, Maggie raised an eyebrow. What are you planning? I'm done being the only one carrying this secret. I pulled up the photos I'd taken of the messages. It's time his parents saw who their son really is. Are you sure? Once you do this. Look at this. I showed her a message thread from 2 days ago. Lila asking about divorce lawyers, Caleb promising to leave me after securing a better custody arrangement for Jasper. He's already planning his exit strategy. I'm just going to beat him to it. Back home, I found Caleb's tablet still logged into his email. With trembling fingers, I forwarded the entire exchange to myself, including the messages about their planned future together. As I hit send, a new email notification popped up. From Lila Brooks. Subject: Tonight? Can't wait to see you. My place at 8? I bought something special to wear. Or not wear, face blowing a kiss. I checked the time, 2:30 p.m. Dinner at his parents' was at 6 o'clock. I picked up my phone and took a screenshot of Lila's email, then typed a quick response from Caleb's account. Can't tonight. Family dinner. Tomorrow. Her reply came instantly. Promise? I miss you already. Promise, I wrote back, feeling sick. I deleted the exchange and logged out. Then I called Ruth back. Would it be all right if I came over early to help with dinner? There's something important I need to discuss with you and Walter. Of course, dear. Is everything okay? No, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. But it will be. Ruth's kitchen had always been my safe haven, but today it felt like a battlefield. I watched her season the steaks, trying to find the right words to shatter her world. Ruth, I need to show you something. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. Is this about Caleb? She put down the pepper grinder. I've noticed something's been off with him lately. Before I could respond, Walter walked in. Ellie, you're early. His warm smile made what I was about to do even harder. Sit down, both of you. Please. They exchanged worried glances but settled at the kitchen table. I pulled up the emails, then hesitated. I love you both like my own parents. You should know that first. Eleanor, you're scaring me. Ruth reached for my hand. The back door slammed. Mom? Dad? Caleb's voice carried from the hallway. My heart stopped. He wasn't supposed to be here yet. Kitchen. Walter called out. I quickly locked my phone screen as Caleb appeared, his confident smile faltering when he saw me. What's going on? I was just about to tell your parents about Lila, I said quietly. The color drained from his face. Ellie, don't. Who's Lila? Ruth looked between us, confusion clouding her features. Nobody, Caleb snapped. Ellie's been imagining things. Really? I unlocked my phone. Should I read the emails? Or show them the pictures? Or maybe explain why you're planning to take Jasper from me? Walter stood up so abruptly his chair toppled backward. What is she talking about, son? It's complicated, Caleb started, but I cut him off. No, it's actually very simple. I turned to Ruth and Walter. Your son has been sleeping with a woman from his office for months. He's planning to leave me, but first he wants to make sure he gets custody of Jasper. The silence that followed was deafening. Ruth's hand covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. Walter just stared at his son, disappointment etched into every line of his face. "Where is Jasper now?" Ruth finally whispered. "With Maggie." "I didn't want him to." I swallowed hard. "I didn't want him to see this." "You had no right." Caleb's voice was low, dangerous. "This is between us." "No," I stood up straighter. "You made it about everyone when you planned to use our son as a weapon against me." "I think," Walter said slowly, "you should leave, Caleb." "Dad." "Now." As Caleb stormed out, Ruth pulled me into a tight embrace. Over her shoulder, I watched Walter sink back into his chair, suddenly looking every bit his age. I'd won this battle, but the war was far from over, and Jasper was still caught in the middle. I was packing Jasper's favorite dinosaur pajamas when I heard the front door slam. Caleb's footsteps thundered up the stairs, and I quickly locked our bedroom door. "Open the damn door, Ellie." His fist pounded against the wood. "You had no right to tell my parents. Like you had no right to plan my son's custody behind my back." I shoved another handful of clothes into the suitcase. "Our son," he snarled. "And everything I did was to protect him from your paranoid delusions." The door handle rattled violently. I grabbed my phone, hitting record. "Is that why you told Lila you'd make sure I only got supervised visits?" My voice shook, but I kept packing. "Because I'm delusional? You went through my private messages. Just like you went through my therapy records?" The words exploded out of me. "Yeah, Maggie found the paperwork in your desk. Using my postpartum depression from 6 years ago against me? That's low, even for you." Silence. Then softer. "I'm just trying to protect my family." "Your family?" I zipped the suitcase. "The one you're building with Lila, or the one you're destroying with your lies?" The pounding resumed, harder this time. "If you leave with my son, You'll what?" I moved closer to the door. "Hit it again, Caleb. Give me more evidence for the judge." More silence. Then footsteps retreating, followed by the sound of breaking glass downstairs. I jumped, my heart racing. My phone buzzed. "Maggie, we're outside. Ruth and Walter are here too." I hadn't expected them to come, but their presence gave me strength. I grabbed the suitcases and opened the door cautiously. Caleb stood at the bottom of the stairs, surrounded by the shattered remains of our wedding photo. His eyes were wild, desperate. "Don't do this." "You did this," I said, descending the stairs slowly. "Every lie, every betrayal, every manipulation. That was all you." "I'll destroy you in court," he whispered. "Everything you love." "Mommy." Jasper's voice came from outside. "Grandma says we're having a sleepover." The front door opened, and Ruth stepped in. The look she gave her son could have frozen hell. "Let them go, Caleb," she said quietly, "before you make things worse." He stepped aside, his facade cracking. For a moment, I saw the man I'd married, scared, insecure, human. But then his eyes hardened again, and I knew that man was gone. As Walter helped me load the cars, I heard Caleb's voice one last time. "This isn't over." "No," I agreed, watching Jasper climb into Ruth's car, clutching his dinosaur. "But it's not going to end the way you planned." I got into Maggie's car, my hands steady for the first time in days. The game had changed, and this time I was writing the rules. 3 days after leaving Caleb, I found myself sitting in a lawyer's office, staring at documents that threatened to destroy everything. Somehow, he'd managed to get an emergency custody hearing scheduled for the following week. "These allegations are serious, Mrs. Harper," my lawyer said, spreading out the papers. "Your husband claims you're emotionally unstable, that you've been making false accusations and displaying paranoid behavior. He's using my postpartum depression against me," I said, my voice hollow. "From 6 years ago. And he has documentation from your therapist. Records he obtained illegally." Maggie interjected from the chair beside me. "That has to count for something." The lawyer sighed. "It should, but Caleb's firm has considerable influence with the local judges. And his father." "Walter won't help him," I interrupted. "Not after everything." My phone buzzed, a text from Ruth. "Caleb's here. He's demanding to see Jasper." My hands started shaking. "I have to go." I found them in Ruth's driveway. Caleb stood with his arms crossed, looking more polished and controlled than I'd ever seen him. Jasper clung to Ruth's leg, eyes wide with confusion. "There's my boy," Caleb said, his voice honey-sweet. "Ready for some father-son time?" "He's scared," I said, moving between them. "You're scaring him." "I'm scaring him?" Caleb laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "You're the one who dragged him away from his home in the middle of the night. After you threatened." "I never threatened anyone," he cut in smoothly. "That's just another example of your paranoid delusions, isn't it, Eleanor?" The way he said my name like I was a misbehaving child made something snap inside me. "You want to talk about delusions? Let's talk about Lila. Let's talk about how you—" Actually, a new voice interrupted. "Let's talk about that." We all turned to see Lila herself walking up the driveway, her face pale but determined. Caleb's confident mask slipped for the first time. "What are you doing here?" he hissed. "Fixing my mistake," she said, then turned to me. "Mrs. Harper, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. He told me you were separated, that you were unstable." But then I saw the custody documents he was preparing, and I realized. "Lila, stop talking," Caleb ordered. "No," she pulled out her phone. "I saved everything. All the messages where you planned how to use her medical history against her. How you wanted to make her look unfit. I can't. I won't help you destroy someone like this." Caleb's face contorted with rage, and for a moment, I thought he might lunge at her. Instead, he turned on his heel and stormed to his car, tires screeching as he drove away. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, watching Jasper's tears as his father abandoned him yet again, I felt nothing but hollow. We'd won this battle, but the war was far from over, and the casualties were already too high. The letter from Aunt Sarah arrived exactly when I needed it most. I hadn't even known she owned property in Millbrook, 3 hours away from the life I was trying to leave behind. But there it was, a house, fully paid for, waiting for us. "It's perfect timing," Maggie said, helping me pack the last of our things from Ruth's guest room. "Caleb won't expect." The doorbell cut her off. Through the window, I saw Caleb's expensive car in the driveway, and beside it, a police cruiser. "Mrs. Harper?" An officer stood at the door. "Your husband has reported concerns about your mental state and your son's safety." Before I could respond, Ruth appeared behind me. "Officer, I'm Ruth Harper, Caleb's mother." "I can assure you." "I have a court order," Caleb interrupted, waving papers. "Jasper needs to come with me until the custody hearing." My world tilted sideways. "No. Mom." Jasper's small voice came from upstairs. "What's happening?" "Nothing, baby. Stay upstairs with Maggie." Caleb tried to push past me, but Walter blocked his path. "Son, think about what you're doing." "I am thinking," Caleb snapped. "I'm thinking about my son being dragged around by an unstable woman who what?" Lila's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the driveway, clutching a familiar-looking folder. "Who discovered her husband's affair? Who found evidence of his planned manipulation of the court system?" Caleb's face went white. "Where did you get those?" "From your office. The same place you illegally accessed Ellie's medical records." She handed the folder to the officer. "Everything's there, including emails discussing how to fabricate evidence of mental instability." The officer flipped through the documents, his expression darkening. "Mr. Harper, these allegations are serious." "She's lying," Caleb sputtered. "She's just angry because you promised to leave your wife for me?" Lila's laugh was bitter. "No. I'm doing this because it's right." I watched Caleb's carefully constructed world crumble. The officer was speaking into his radio, requesting guidance about the custody order's validity given the new evidence. "Why?" Caleb's voice cracked as he looked at me. "I gave you everything." "No," I said quietly. "You gave me things. Houses, cars, vacations, anything to avoid giving me respect or honesty." The officer returned, explaining that the custody order was temporarily suspended pending investigation. As Caleb was led back to his car, defeated, I felt no triumph, only relief. That evening, as Jasper and I drove toward our new home in Millbrook, I realized something. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemy. Sometimes it's about building something better from the ruins they left behind. 6 months later, I stood in our Millbrook garden, watching Jasper chase butterflies through the wildflowers. The house needed work, peeling paint, creaky stairs, overgrown gardens. But it was ours. Every imperfection felt like freedom. My phone buzzed with a text from Ruth. He's starting therapy next week. I didn't need to ask who he was. After losing his job over the ethics violation of accessing my medical records, Caleb had finally hit rock bottom. Part of me wanted to feel satisfied, but I mostly felt tired. Revenge had stopped mattering somewhere between the court dates and the quiet dinners with Jasper in our new kitchen. "Mom," Jasper called out. "Look what I found." He held up a silver charm bracelet, dirt-covered but familiar. My breath caught. It was identical to the one that had started everything. "Where did you get that, sweetie?" "It was in the flower bed. Aunt Sarah must have lost it." Of course. My aunt had always loved her jewelry. The universe had a strange sense of humor sometimes. The doorbell rang. Maggie, right on time for our weekly dinner. But when I opened the door, Caleb stood there instead, looking smaller somehow in casual clothes. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said quickly, hands raised. I needed to say something." I glanced at Jasper, still happily exploring the garden. "Make it quick." "I'm sorry." The words tumbled out. Not just for Lila, but for everything before that. The control, the manipulation, the way I made you doubt yourself. I was terrified of not being enough, and I turned that fear into weapons against you. "Why now?" "Because I finally understand what you meant about respect." He swallowed hard. "And because Jasper deserves to see his father own his mistakes." I studied him, the shadows under his eyes, the humility that had replaced his arrogance. "You're right, he does. Would it be okay if I talked to him? Just for a few minutes." I nodded slowly. "Jasper? Come here, baby. Someone wants to say hello." As they talked, I watched from the porch, the old bracelet cool in my palm. 6 months ago, I'd wanted revenge. Wanted Caleb to hurt like I hurt. Now, watching him kneel in the dirt to examine Jasper's butterfly collection, I realized something. Sometimes the best endings aren't about winning or losing. Sometimes they're about finding the strength to let go of the story you thought you needed to tell. I slipped the bracelet into my pocket, making a mental note to add it to Jasper's treasure box. Some things are better remembered as the beginning of something new, rather than the end of something broken.